Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we got another Mach-E video. Today we're going to recap all of the announcements that have happened over the past few months in terms of charging and kind of what this means for the Mach-E and Ford electric vehicles going forward. So just to go back in time, so it's currently August of 2023, and really the last video I did kind of about this topic and charging changes was the Tesla Magic Dock announcement. That happened at the end of February, February 28th. Tesla opened 11 of their Superchargers to add a Magic Dock capability, which basically means it has an adapter built into the station. So you can use a CCS vehicle and charge at a Tesla Supercharger. You didn't have to buy an adapter or anything. You could just show up at one of these stations, download the Tesla app on your phone, activate the charger from your phone, pay through your phone, and the adapter would unlock in the Magic Dock and you would be able to connect to your CCS vehicle. So this initial announcement, they had 11 stations that had the upgraded Magic Dock capability. 9 of them were in New York and are still active, and 2 of them were in California and are also still active. There was a few more announcements later that we'll talk about in a second that kind of reshifted the focus and kind of didn't totally discount or throw away the Magic Dock idea, but it kind of changed things quite a bit. So just sticking with the Magic Dock for a second, there is one change kind of since that early March, late February timeframe. There's one additional Supercharger location that has been upgraded to Magic Dock, and it's in Texas. So if you're in the Texas area and you want to try Magic Dock, that's available. The other thing with Magic Dock too is it's not just a certain automaker thing. Only Ford can charge there and not Toyota or something like that. It's if your car has CCS, there is a Magic Dock location and it shows up in the Tesla app and you can activate it, then you can charge there. So no automaker deal for that one. So after the Magic Dock, the next really big announcement I'm sure you heard about was the Ford and Tesla announcement, and this happened on May 25th in 2023. So about 2 months or so after that Magic Dock announcement, the Ford announcement was Ford gains access to over 12,000 of Tesla's Superchargers in North America. And it was like, whoa, that's huge news. And, that means it's not just the Magic Dock locations. So that was really exciting, but this isn't going to be happening until springtime, early, kind of whatever phrase they've thrown around, but somewhere in that early to mid 2024 timeframe. So still about a year away from when they announced that, and from August now, or probably at least I would guess 6 months out or longer before that will be a reality. But this dramatically changed things because that's way more Superchargers than the Magic Dock is, and even if they upgraded many stations, that's going to take time. And so the Ford vehicles are going to be able to access those Tesla Superchargers through an adapter, a CCS to the Tesla NACS connector adapter. Kind of like the Magic Dock, except it's not going to be built into the station. You'll own the adapter and bring it with you. The other really big part about this announcement, and probably the biggest part of all the announcements this year, is Ford announced they're going to be putting Tesla's NACS connector on their vehicles, starting with their second generation vehicles in 2025. So, that means no adapter, no Magic Dock. You can just plug straight in to a Tesla Supercharger or any other charging equipment that has the Tesla NACS connector on it. So here in North America, it kind of seemed like it was going to be Tesla's NACS and everybody else was going to be CCS1. CHAdeMO seemed to be kind of phasing out, like the Nissan Leaf uses that. So it kind of seemed like it was CCS or Tesla NACS. So that's a huge change. So let's break that down a little bit. I'm sure you've read about this, but just kind of want to recap it if you're trying to watch this video in terms of, hey, I want to buy a Mach-E, I want to buy a used Mach-E, or I want to buy one now, I don't really want to wait till 2025. So yeah, let's keep going. My Mach-E here has a CCS 1 port on it. That's what I use all the time for DC fast charging. And CCS is basically the top part's the AC, and then the bottom two larger pins is the DC. At home, for all the level 1, level 2 charging, you're using the top part of the CCS port, the J1772 port. And so that's what I'm using at home, and then I'm using CCS when I'm doing DC fast charging on the road. There will be an adapter available starting in early 2024. And we kind of got some details from that original call with Farley and Musk. Tesla will be making this adapter. It kind of sounded like that from the Musk and Farley call. And that's been the case for all the other automakers that have announced it, is Tesla is making the adapter, and it's going to be available early next year. A lot of people are curious how much it's going to cost. We don't know that either. In the call, Elon mentions...
Yeah, I think it will not be cost prohibitive. It'll be, something that's quite affordable, in the hundreds of dollars range. It's an adapter, so it's not super expensive.
If you look on Tesla's website, they have the reverse adapter available for Tesla owners that want to charge on CCS. So a Tesla owner that wants to charge on the Electrify America network, they have a CCS to NACS adapter that Tesla makes and sells, and it's priced at $175 right now. It could be also a little bit less because I'm assuming they're going to make thousands, tens of thousands of these things. They would have to. Probably not everybody is going to buy one, but I suspect a lot of people will. So that could help bring the price down, but then also the demand could increase the price. So we'll have to see what happens there. But I think it'll be fairly affordable considering, it might be the only option to be able to drive your car to certain places is to have this adapter. The charging speed has also come up a lot, and as well as, which locations are going to be available. It's 12,000 or more than 12,000. So, it specifically doesn't say all Tesla Superchargers. So I've tried to do a little bit of research on this. It seems like it's going to be V3 Superchargers and newer that will support this. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But it's not all the locations, but it is a whole bunch of them. But the speed itself...
It'll really be at whatever the physical limit is of the wiring. And so we'll make sure that the adapter is not the limiting factor. So it will, and the supercharger will not be the limiting factor. So it would really be, anything that's on the vehicle side wiring. But we'll certainly go as fast as the vehicle battery will allow.
So before we keep going, there's a few really interesting tidbits from this call that I kind of want to mention. So let me play this part from Jim Farley for you.
Our industry is kind of obsessed with these huge batteries, and I think that's maybe not the right approach. We should make the battery as small as possible, actually, with a really competitive user experience range, but have like really great fast charging experience combined with that, so we don't have to be driving around, $20,000 of extra batteries for customers.
Yeah, exactly.
So he mentions about, big batteries, maybe reduce your battery size in half or in a third. I mean, he doesn't use those amounts, but he's thinking a significant reduction in the battery size to reduce the cost. And I think that all makes a lot of sense, because if you think about in 2025, they're going to have their next gen Ford electric vehicle. It's probably going to have the NACS built in, and they're going to want to make it super affordable. And so to do that, they're likely going to be reducing the battery capacity. My Mach-E here has a 70 kilowatt hour battery. The extended range pack is in the upper 90, like 97, 98 kilowatt hours. The F-150s are over 100. There's just a lot of huge battery packs out there, and frankly, you need them based on where all the chargers are if you're doing a lot of road trips. Obviously, for the trucks and towing, you definitely need it. And even that's really not adequate to make it between the chargers if you're towing. So I think the truck case and the large battery case is still going to make sense probably for a while. But for now, in the short term, just reading between the lines, it seems like Farley is thinking lower price electric vehicle. It can charge on all these Tesla superchargers, which are all over the place. You don't need to charger hop nearly as far to be able to road trip it. And if you have a great charging experience at a Tesla charger, maybe that's offset, and you're okay with having less range because the price is lower and you're going to have a great charging experience. Plus, a lot of people are, using those cars for commuter cars, back and forth to work, so they might not be road tripping them all the time, but they still can if they have a good charging network to use. The Ford Maverick came out in the last few years here. It's their base level. Base level is not even the right size. It's their smallest pickup truck, but it still has a lot of nice features. You can still get like the Lariat trim on that. And it's very affordable. Sub $30,000 for a lot of truck, even the low 20s. It depends on how you option it. So I'm thinking like whatever that is in the EV space, the Mach-E, the F-150, they're all pretty expensive. They're in the $50,000 range plus. There's the tax credits, and if you think about EV costs over time, the math can work out, but just for the masses, really need to get that price down for it to be realistic for people to want to go buy it. Okay, maybe the range is, I don't know, 150 miles or something like that, or 100 miles or something like that. 100's probably a little bit too short, but I think they could be sub 200 miles, and if you have a great charging experience like on the Supercharger network, that could actually make a lot of sense. The other thing that's interesting in the call is Elon mentions that he doesn't want the Supercharger network to be like a walled garden. And that term gets thrown around a lot when you're talking about Apple and kind of how they've built their ecosystem. Everything from, iMessage to, the interaction between devices, and like their AirPods being able to switch between devices, and like, yeah, the Bluetooth works with, non-Apple products or whatever, but it's not nearly as seamless. It was interesting he called walled garden, and it was interesting that he doesn't want that to happen for the superchargers. Basically, I think he's trying not to be Apple in that case. Elon's never been a big Apple fan, so it's kind of interesting to hear him say that. Specifically, he talks about adding API support so that things like plug and charge can work. Okay, so since that announcement, that was at the end of May, there's been a bunch of other automakers that have announced essentially the exact same thing that Ford did. The next big one was General Motors. That was on June 8th. So that was only 2 weeks after the Ford announcement, which was kind of surprising. It was hard to tell of like, okay, the Ford announcement's a big deal. It's still a really big deal, but like, how much really happened behind the scenes there? Was that in talks for years? And, if we're really going to get the industry to switch, like, is Jim calling the CEO of GM and trying to get her to switch, like what's going on there? It was really interesting that it really wasn't that long before GM announced the same thing. It was the same thing, Twitter Spaces with Elon, and it was very short and sweet. It was, I don't know, less than 15 minutes, and it was basically, if you want to hear the condensed version, just listen to the GM call with Mary and Elon. So GM, Fisker, Mercedes-Benz, Nissan, Rivian, Polestar, and Volvo have all announced, at least as of August right now, that they're going to be able to charge on not all, but 12,000 plus superchargers with the adapter starting in early 2024, and they're going to be putting the NACS NACS port on their cars starting in 2025. Pretty much the same announcement, which is great because that means we're going to have more automakers using that port, and it's more likely that that's going to become literally the North American charging standard. Now, there's also some really key automakers that have not announced this partnership. And probably the most notable ones, the big ones, just reading from the list, Lucid, Volkswagen, BMW, Audi, Porsche, Toyota, Kia, Honda, Lexus, and Hyundai. There's probably a few other smaller makers that I'm forgetting here, but they have not announced this Tesla supercharging NACS partnership. I think there's a few reasons for this, and I can speculate. So the big one is some of these cars, like specifically the Lucid, is a different architecture. So it's the 800 volt higher voltage architecture, where the Mach-E is more like the 400, 450 volt architecture. And so the Superchargers are limited to, it's either 400 or 500 volts. So the 800 volt cars don't charge, they really don't charge very well on the current supercharger network. Now, with the V4 superchargers coming, that should resolve that, but there's very few installed. I think there's one or two kind of in testing basically, but there's really no fleet of V4 superchargers as of August 2023 here. So I think in Lucid's case, if they announce the partnership, cool, but it doesn't exactly solve their problem right away. Volkswagen is also very interesting because they're the parent company of Electrify America. So I think it's not too surprising that they haven't announced it. Now, Electrify America has announced that they are going to be supporting the NACS at their chargers, which is maybe a little bit surprising just because Volkswagen hasn't announced any sort of partnership. But at the same time, if all these automakers are going to be using NACS, then Electrify America is going to want their business, and if they can offer them business without an adapter, that would be great. Then there's kind of a second reason. So besides from the 800 volt or some of the politics of Electrify America and Volkswagen, there's this new announcement of over 30,000 superchargers by 2030. That's a mix of both CCS and NACS. And this is a partnership between GM, BMW, Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Mercedes, and Stellantis, which is the parent Fiat, Chrysler. So that's cool. Great to see somebody else besides Tesla really trying to install chargers. What's interesting is Ford is not part of that announcement, at least not right now. Maybe they would get involved later, but I give Ford a ton of credit for, kind of what seems like really launching that partnership with Tesla, really supporting the NACS connector. And so maybe they feel like that's kind of where they put their eggs and they just want to stick with that. And I think that's great. It seems like they're really trying not to focus on charging infrastructure themselves, like go install things. Now, the one exception to that is they are installing chargers at their dealerships. Now, it's not all the dealerships. It's dealerships had to enroll in a Model E program and, kind of commit to servicing, selling a certain number of electric vehicles every year. And part of that is they had to install a certain number of DC fast chargers at their dealership. At the same time, it's not super ideal because the dealership is going to kind of take priority of those chargers. So if they have a new car that, the customer's coming tomorrow or coming later that afternoon to pick it up, they're going to want to charge it up using that fast charger. So, or they might have cars blocking them overnight. So I don't know how accessible those chargers are really going to be. We'll have to see how that gets built out. So Ford is doing that. Then the other thing I want to mention is just going back to the adapter. So I don't think anybody's brought this up. Maybe it's just implied, but one of the people have brought up the Tesla superchargers have very short charging cables. It's kind of all spec to where Tesla puts their charging port. In the back of the car for all their models, it's, an ideal cable length. It's not too long, not too short. It's just right. And so the problem is other cars like the Mach-E have charging ports in totally different locations, and the cable doesn't reach, or you have to park at a weird angle, or like in the case of my local supercharger, if we just pretended that it was upgraded, I basically have to drive over the little parking block to get close enough to plug in, which it's doable, but it's not the nicest solution there. But I was thinking with the adapter, even if it was like a right angle adapter or a 45-degree angle adapter, and it gave you like 6 to 12 inches of extra length, but then it was at an angle, that could actually make a huge difference. Having a cable going, at a 90-degree angle is kind of stressful on the cable. So if it could be straight and then have the adapter do the right angle, or even a 45-degree, I think that could actually be very helpful and may make more of those supercharger locations a lot more usable. The last thing too is just the NACS port on cars. There's been some questions I've seen about, will Ford have 2 charging ports? Would they have a NACS, NACS, or would they have a CCS? Would they actually have both on the car? And I think it's a fair question. I have a hard time seeing them doing that. Yeah, for the customer it'd be nice because you wouldn't have to have an adapter with you. You'd always be covered. But that would add a lot of cost to the vehicle. It would almost certainly be more expensive than whatever the adapter would cost. If you think about all the internal wiring, frankly, I don't know what the benefit would be other than, yeah, you don't have to carry the adapter, but if Ford decides just to ship new cars with an adapter or whatever, that seems like the better option there. So I could see some case like the F-150 Lightning or something, like the top model, it's got everything. It's got, the Pro Power on board. It can, power your house. It can charge another EV, and it can do, NACS and CCS. Like I could see some, kind of marketing thing there, but I just feel like for most cars, I think it's going to be one or the other. I think however Ford chooses to integrate it into the car, I think that if it's under a door, Tesla does it kind of more under like under their tail light. So if Ford does something like that, it's probably going to have to be big enough to where they could put either port under there. It's just my thought. They could definitely sell models that are only in North America, and it's they can design it just for the smaller NACS connector or whatever. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So yeah, that's kind of been the main announcements. There's Magic Dock, that's still a thing. Like I mentioned, there's that Texas site that just recently opened here in August. So be cool to see more of those sites open since they're usable now. Then we've got the adapters coming for all the CCS cars for these automakers that have kind of signed up to do it in early springtime 2024. And then we've got the transition to NACS in 2025, at least on kind of the next gen vehicles. I suspect we'll see another generation of the Mach-E around 2025. It would probably have that port on it. And we'll try and do another one of these videos when there's more charging news here in the future. All right, well, I think that wraps up the video. So if there's other news that you've heard about, or there's a Tesla Magic Dock getting installed near you, let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.